Hello and welcome. I'm Lee Warren, and today I want to talk about grief and gratitude. We compartmentalized grief to a very, very tiny place in our lives, generally speaking. I often hear people say things like, I've seen my father cry twice in my life. That was at, his parents' funerals. We often don't see, especially in Western culture, outward expressions of grief, mourning or crying or making space for sadness. This is not something we're taught in our culture. So we take a lot of life's disappointments, small and large, losses, small and large, and we tuck them somewhere. We put them aside. We're told to keep our chin up and think positively, don't complain. And this is a recipe for shutting down our life force, our emotional lives, and increasing the possibility of disease. Yeah, and stagnation, really. Emotional stagnation, physical stagnation in our lives. And we have it really that we should think positively and we should be grateful for our lives if we're not one of those starving children in Africa, or if we have all kinds of privileges and benefits. Well, we very much lean into wanting to focus on our privileges and benefits, and that's an amazing practice. Gratitudes are a wonderful way to lift our vibration and our energy in life, and to really, in some ways, call better and more good things towards us, and to live a life with more open heartedness when we can really be grateful for what we have. All of those things are very important and powerful. But I'm also here to argue and educate that a grief practice is just as important. When we don't feel the losses, small and large, we start to really calcify. There's certain places in ourselves that get cut off, or where we inhabit them less. They become sort of disembodied places in us. I know in some grief traditions, the idea that without expressing grief, it turns into anger, petrified anger. It turns into loneliness, disconnection, and lack of trust for ourselves and for others. My teacher Soban Fu Somé likes to say there is no such thing as an individual grief. It's all community grief. And the idea there is that we are all meant to do life together. And then when one of us stubs our toe, the rest of us feel it. When one of us loses some kind of income source, or has a disappointment, a child doesn't experience success in the way we had hoped to, or we had really wanted a relationship in a certain way and it ended or it changed, all of these things are the warp of life. We have plenty of things to celebrate and lots of challenges in life. Incarnating is a very challenging experience. So we have the positive and negative, the expansion and the contraction. And to only focus on one side of that coin and not the other leaves us imbalanced, really. And a gratitude practice many of us are familiar with is we just really tune in inside to the things that are all around us, supporting us in life. These are incredible practices. From the things we like to touch or taste or smell or see, to the air we're breathing, to the relationships that sustain us, to our connection to something greater, whether that's nature or a divinity or even our purpose in life. And with grief, we pull from the same things, right? We are filled with places that we'd rather things be different. I know for me, when technology doesn't work, I have a lot of frustration. Or when relationships in my life change. I had recently had a friend who became unavailable due to changing jobs, and I've been really grieving the loss of her in my life on a regular basis. Grieving health issues, grieving challenges and of all kinds. And a grief practice looks very much like a gratitude practice. I like to create a container for it. So to sit in nature or to sit at my altar and light a candle and say, for the next 10 minutes, the next 20 minutes, however, it could be days. For some of us who've never grieved, we really need to learn to build that muscle quite slowly over time. But for 10 minutes, I can sort of let my body feel its own losses and disappointments. What's been happening recently that has me feeling grief? And that really does start to flow the energy in the body in profound ways when we take time to consciously honor and not just sort of bitch in the background or kvetch or complain, right? That's also what happens when we ignore our grief. It leaks out. It leaks out in all of these ways that may not be the most uplifting for ourselves or others. But when we give ourselves the time to let the pain surface, let the loss surface, and let it flow, it's an emotional hygiene in a way. It's a maintenance of where things might be jammed up, might be stuck, where the river of life is not flowing. I teach a class called Grief and Eros, Eros, and this is where we really get to explore and experience how life force, prana, chi, and the pathways of grief run in the same ways in our bodies, through our certain cranial nerves, through our whole organ systems. Particularly in Chinese medicine, grief is in the lungs, the lung, large intestine meridians. These are really important bookends of our bodies to be able to these places in us. And when we run grief with some undulation, some breath, and some sound, like we might learn in erotic practice, we can actually enhance the movement of that grief. And what gets freed up is more of a free flow of life force energy. I like the image of the caduceus, which is the staff with the two snakes running up, right? It's often used in medical systems, but it's an ancient symbol. And I like the idea that the staff is us, it's our presence, it's our life force, it's this incarnated vehicle that we've been given. And grief is one of the snakes, and gratitude is the other snake. And they run in our lives moment to moment, day to day, week to week, month to month. We are filled with both gratitudes and griefs. We are filled with gains and losses, celebrations and challenges. And the idea that we would be filled with both, we would be flowing with both, that we would be able to express both. And we don't really need others to do that. We can have our own internal practice. And yet, if there is a dear one, a close one that's willing to do a grief practice with you, or there's even better community grief rituals or spaces where grief is welcome, these are the places we get to learn to build the muscle of expressing what's been hard about this life, these relationships, these expectations. Humans are filled with desires and expectations, and part of our initiation through this life is to learn that there are times, many, many, many times, where we don't get what we want, where our expectations are not met, where our desires are not filled. And really, to grieve those places helps us integrate those initiatory experiences. And instead of becoming bitter and shut down, we are able to flow with more wisdom, more embodiment, and more graciousness. I would say more open-heartedness, because we have lost and we are still choosing to be here, experiencing the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of what life is bringing us. And so grief practice, I encourage you to create grief practice alone, with another or others. And it lubricates, I promise you, it lubricates all of the wheels of life that lead to more joy, more receptivity, and more aliveness. Thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you have any experience specifically with grief practice, I think it would be a benefit to all of us.